You know the feeling. You're on vacation, you try to watch your favorite show from back home, and blocked. Or maybe you hear a new album is out somewhere else, but you can't get it. We've all been there. And it always leads to that one big question. Is getting around those digital borders actually illegal? Well, let's get into it. Ah, yes, the dreaded digital wall. We've all slammed right into it. You're trying to watch a show, maybe listen to a song, and boom, you get this message. This is exactly what we're here to talk about today, to really figure out what this frustrating little message means for you and me. So, what do? You fire up a VPN, and like magic, the content starts to play. Problem solved, right? Well, that's when that little voice in the back of your head kicks in, asking, wait a minute, am I breaking the law right now? And it turns out the answer is complicated because it really depends on who you ask, your streaming service or the government. Okay, so to understand the legal side of things, we first have to get a handle on the technology that's putting up these walls. We're talking about the internet's invisible fences, a practice that's officially known as geo-blocking. So what is geo-blocking at its core? You can think of it as a form of digital rights management, or DRM. That's just a fancy term for technology that's designed to control how you use digital content. It works by looking at your device's IP address, which is basically its digital zip code, to figure out exactly where in the world you are. So why do these fences even exist in the first place? I mean, isn't the internet supposed to be global? Well, sometimes it's about local laws, for things like online gambling. But most of the time, it really just boils down to business strategy. And that business strategy really comes down to two big things. First, you've got content licensing. A studio might sell the exclusive rights for a new movie to Netflix in the US, but to a totally different service in the UK. Geo-blocking is what keeps those deals separate. And then you've got price discrimination, which is just the practice of selling the same exact thing, like a piece of software, for different prices in different countries to squeeze out as much profit as possible. And price discrimination can have a massive impact. Back in 2013, an Australian parliamentary inquiry looked into why Australians were paying way more for things like software. And their conclusion? Geo-blocking was a key tool being used to enforce what people started calling the Australia tax, which pretty much just stopped people from shopping around on the global market for a better price. Of course, whenever you build a wall, someone is going to figure out a way to get around it. And in this case, the most popular tool for this great digital escape is the virtual private network, or as we all know it, the VPN. So how does this cyber travel actually work? Honestly, it's surprisingly simple. Your device makes a secure connection to a VPN server in another country. Let's say it's in London. Then, that server in London connects to the website you want to visit. To that website, it looks like your request is coming from London, not from your living room. And just like that, you're watching UK content. Okay, so we know how it's all done, but now we've got to tackle the big question. Is it legal? And to really answer that, we have to understand the massive difference between breaking a company's rules and breaking a country's laws. They are not the same thing. I think it's helpful to think about this in three different tiers. At the very top, you have state law. This is the serious stuff enforced by the government and the police. One level down, you have contract law. Think of that long terms of service agreement you scrolled past. And at the bottom, there's policy, like the rules your school or your job might have about using the network. Using a VPN means something totally different at each of these levels. Let's start with that middle tier, the contract. If you actually read the terms of service for pretty much any streaming platform, you are going to find a clause just like this one from Netflix. It basically says you agree to only watch content that's licensed for your location. So when you use a VPN to cyber travel, are you breaking that agreement? Yes, 100%. But here's the kicker. What's the actual penalty for breaking that contract? In the real world, streaming companies have shown absolutely no interest in suing their own paying customers. The most likely consequence is, well, another error message, you turn off your VPN, and it works again. They'll block your connection, but they almost never actually ban your accounts. Okay, but what about state law? This is where things could get much more serious. Laws like the U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA, make it illegal to get around something called a Technological Protection Measure, or TPM, that's controlling access to copyrighted work. And right here we arrive at the million-dollar legal question. Does a simple geo-block actually count as a TPM under the law? The answer is nobody knows for sure, seriously. The legal community is completely split on this, and so far, the courts haven't given a final clear ruling. This legal gray area is the single biggest reason why there's no simple yes or no to our question.
Now, it is absolutely vital that we draw a very bright, clear line here. Using a VPN to unblock a streaming service you already pay for exists in a legal gray area. But using a VPN to hide your identity while you're torrenting movies without paying for them, that is straight up copyright infringement. It's piracy, and it's illegal. A VPN is just a tool. It doesn't magically make an illegal act legal.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any more complicated, the rules change dramatically depending on where you are physically located when you flip on that VPN. Your location is everything. You can pretty much divide the world into 3 zones. In the green zone, places like the US, the UK, and most of Europe, using a VPN is totally legal for any purpose. In the amber zone, they're restricted. And in the red zone, countries like China and Russia heavily control or outright ban VPNs, meaning just using one could get you into some serious trouble. And even inside that green zone, the approaches can be completely different. The EU has a regulation that legally forces services to let you access your home content when you travel there. At the same time, that Australian inquiry we mentioned actually recommended their government think about banning geo-blocking altogether. It just shows you how much this whole global legal landscape is still being figured out. So, after navigating that entire legal maze, what's the verdict? I mean, where does all this complexity actually leave us? Let's circle all the way back to our original question. Is it illegal? Well, for the average person in the US, Canada, or Europe who just wants to watch a show they already subscribe to, the answer is probably not in a criminal sense. Your biggest risk isn't a lawsuit from Netflix, it's just their technology getting smarter and blocking your VPN connection. It is a breach of contract, but the real-world penalty is an error code, not a court date. Ultimately, this whole technical and legal cat-and-mouse game just raises a much bigger question about the internet itself. Was it meant to be a borderless global village for everyone, or is it slowly turning into a series of gated digital communities? The fight over geo-blocking really is a fight for the future of the web. Thanks for joining me.